Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's James, and welcome. It's another AA podcast, and I'm your host today, taking care of you, if I can. I will try my very best. I have with me, of course, the usual ragtag, but extremely lovable collection of retro game lovers. Adrian!
I'm here.
He's
always
here.
Part of the furniture.
Mind, body, and spirit today.
Oh, yeah.
Dylan!
Yes, James.
How are you, sir?
Thank you, and thank you for fueling us on this fine day.
Bought some snacks.
James has bought more snacks than can fit in my house, and also some coffee. So.
We filled a little bag, so I've gone a bit nuts today, but there we go. Great deals. And I've got, to my left, of course, Keith. How are you, sir?
Hello, I'm good, thank you. Nice to see you.
Yeah, and thank you very much. And recently, I was going to say a little bird told me, but I was actually at your party. So
Yeah, you knew. You did know.
You had the big one, didn't you? And
I
a big
did.
birthday. Whee!
Yeah.
What was it? What was the birthday?
21.
21 again.
Yeah.
Ew. 21 again. 20 times 2.
Yes,
that
one.
So because of that, there's a little something on the table, a couple of little somethings on the table for you. So I thought rather than us dive straight into the meat on the bones of today's pod, which by the way nobody knows what it is yet.
It's a secret.
Have an open of that little mysterious box on the table,
James. Okay,
it's like one of those YouTube videos. Like we bought a mystery box, like
unboxing
for however much. What is in it?
Let's have a look.
I mean, I can. Oh no, you've gone straight into it. I thought I was going to offer some scissors. Straight into it.
No. You see,
Scissors?
I thought of that because just a little bit of tape on top. You see, I didn't go crazy.
Ooh.
Go for the one in the bottom first,
Okay.
because I think that may become relevant definitely today with the recorded sesh that we've got ahead of us.
I like wrapping paper.
It's well wrapped,
very-
isn't it?
On brand.
I've got kids. I've done a few Christmases.
To Keith, happy birthday, fella. Love from the Millers. Thank you very much, mate.
That's right.
Really
That's right,
appreciate
Chief.
it.
I didn't wrap.
That's all right. Yeah, but you don't though. That's your edge.
Yeah, I just don't wrap.
If found empty, please return to the kettle.
Come on.
Aww, it's a little mug.
So you'll
It's
never
a
run
mug.
out of tea. Because when
bless.
it's empty, people take it back to the kettle. Hey presto! In other words, you're subtly telling
Oh.
people, "I'll have another brew."
I will feed back and let you know if this works at home.
It's like a homing mug.
We'll see if it
Homing
works.
mug.
I will test it out.
I
at
don't
home.
know if Michelle's going to be overly enamoured with this.
She doesn't make a very good cup of tea.
Oh no!
Oh, hang on, Tom. She isn't listening to this.
Jesus,
episode.
with shots
Listen
fired.
to this. Could say what
She
I
will
want.
after this. I'll tag her. I'll tag her in it.
Oh, well, what's the second? Oh, I can feel bubble wrap.
You won't in a million
I can
years
feel
guess what
bubble
this
wrap.
is. This is the gaming related one.
Oh god, it's stuck to the paper.
Although tea is kind of gaming related, no? Because tea while you're
You
gaming.
need your fuel, don't you?
Yeah. Cup of tea.
100%.
This is well wrapped.
Oh, a bit of ASMR on the mic
Yeah, I was going
there.
to say that actually.
Bit of bubble
yeah.
wrap on the mic. Go on, get it nice and close. Go on.
There you go.
Oh, I
This is
love
the
it.
arcade attack.
It's a little black box.
Sheila's little black book.
It's just a really tiny.
Is it
version
that
of
small? Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. No, no.
Oh, it's all the keys from
It's
Resident
the
Evil.
keys from
It is.
Resident Evil 2. The diamond key, the heart key, the club key.
Very
and
good.
The spade key.
That's very cool.
Awesome. I love that.
Very
Thank you, mate. Oh, wow. That's so
I figured
cool.
that might go because I was thinking of something like small, just to kind of. I was like, what hasn't he got? And I was rewatching the video that we've posted out on the socials
Oh,
a
my
couple of
little
times.
room. Yeah.
Of the tour of the man
paused
cave.
it every.
Yeah, and I was looking, I was going, okay, he's got Ghostbusters, he's got Predator, he's got right, right. Hang on, and obviously,
Oh, no, I love those.
They're very cool.
They're really cool.
you like?
I do. Thank you, mate. I really
Cool.
appreciate that.
I think what we next
No
going
worries.
to do is chloroform Keith. Put him in a weird mansion somewhere. Turn all
the
the locks
keys.
to those, and just hide the keys around.
find the
Even
keys.
better, do it in his own house. So get a locksmith,
Change the
change the
locks.
locks to those keys, and then he has to work out.
Yeah,
how to
we'll
do it.
find the keys.
And somehow
oh,
get
that's
some
really
zombies.
cool.
Somehow, I'm sure we could. Yeah, I'm sure
We
we
could
could
rustle up some.
get rustle up some zombies.
Just go to Croydon at 3 a.m. I'm sure you find quite a few.
Hey.
Zombies, yeah.
There's that dig
Yeah.
at Croydon.
It's almost standard now on most pods, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
Thank you
congrats,
very
mate.
much.
Congrats for the big one.
Oh, thanks.
And,
But it doesn't end there.
oh,
Oh, shall I?
oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. I've got Keith's present to give as well.
Oh, wow.
Hey.
Yeah.
You kept this quiet.
This was worth getting here so early for.
Well, it's all about Adrian taking over James's podcast.
I was.
Yeah,
Adrian always
That's
hijacked.
true.
Genuinely, I didn't know that Adrian was going to do this.
Oh.
But it's not wraps, so James
Well,
has
it
It's
to-
kind
in
of
a
is.
box. It's in a box. Fragile. Now, it's a certain shape.
Fragile.
Yeah, you can probably guess.
I could
It's-
probably guess what it is.
It's Sheila's little flat book.
It's the calendar.
big
She was
flat
all like the calendar.
Oh, well.
Oh,
Are you sure you
2023.
want to be here for this, Aid?
Pedro is January.
We're just going to flip. We're just going to flip.
February goes across the two.
We're just going to flick the switch which turns on the Patreon only.
Yeah.
Have a look.
Oh wow! Look at this.
Oh,
Mate.
amazing!
Mate.
What you got? What you got?
It is
Mate.
the 9 Inch Nails soundtrack to Quake.
Mate.
Quake
that's
soundtrack.
awesome.
'Cause I know you like nails.
I do like
especially
nails.
9-inch ones.
I do, yeah. No, that's amazing.
Oh, he's here all day. Unfortunately.
I redid a
um,
little sticker. Finally, the official release of 9 Inch Nails' groundbreaking soundtrack to the legendary first-person shooter from id Software.
Gonna have a lot of fun with that.
2 LPs pressed on 180-gram vinyl, remastered in 2020. Oh man, thank you. That is so
good old
cool.
Trent.
That's awesome.
superb.
So it came a bit late, so I was a bit angry at Trent. So I kept emailing him, say, "Where is his?"
Did he send it personally?
Well, I don't think it was Trent, but you never know, do you?
Adrian
Oh,
just
man.
hounded him on his email.
It's a great soundtrack. I don't know if you- I know I don't think you're a huge Quake fan. I don't know, but
Not massively. Not
But the
massively.
soundtrack
Very
is-
subtle. I find like the Quake sound.
The only copy I've got of it at the moment is on Dreamcast, which is very difficult to play.
yes,
But yeah, that's amazing.
it's
that is a banging present.
Well,
is.
Well
yeah.
done.
It is.
Bravo.
Thank you very much.
And what I'll tell you what,
Spoiled today.
it's
I
all
gave
in-
yours. Yeah, I gave yours months ago.
You
sorry.
gave me awesome stuff as well.
Oh, that was months ago.
Dylan's
It was
like,
months
"Meh."
ago.
I was
It
like, I'm
super
surprised
early.
you.
It was very surprising. Thanks, Aid.
Happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
we'll get a couple of pickies of all that stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah,
put
yeah,
it on the old
definitely.
put it on the old socials
Yeah.
because it's all nice and shiny now, isn't it?
It is.
Well, to be fair, all your vinyls and all that stuff
He still
stays
keeps
stays
things-
quite shiny.
I
doesn't
am
it,
a
really?
bit fussy
Yeah,
about that. Yeah.
things he's had from the 90s are still
Still
shiny.
shiny.
yeah.
But I like that though. I like that looking after the stuff. So, should we actually have a podcast?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, let's do. No,
Should we-
more presents. No,
Should we- We've got no. Hang on a minute. What's this? No, I'm only joking. So, let's get back on track, shall we? Well, we might go off track in a minute, depending on if Adrian decides to, pipe up again and take over the podcast. But so now, chaps, I think you'd agree we cover all sorts of genres, eras, styles, platforms, loads of platforms on our pods.
The fashion sounds like a fashion podcast, doesn't it?
Yeah, so the clothes show in the 90s.
seasons.
But I have to say, there is a category which has often sat on the bench. Yeah? Oh, is that fair to say? Waiting for more of its moment in the spotlight. So, as we edge ever closer, can you believe it? We're edging close to 300 episodes. It's getting there. It's getting there of our show. I'm today going to talk to you about real-time strategy games.
There were lots of puns at this
Yes.
Spotlight,
Yes.
Edge.
Yes.
You know, I appreciate every single one.
I know.
We haven't
We like
covered
a
many.
pun. There might be some more. No, and this is the
So
thing.
if you look back, we've touched on a couple maybe.
Yes, there have been a couple, and there's also been some fantastic interviews as well from guys and girls who have worked on those games.
the
But
Westwood Studios
I
guys.
don't think we've ever kind of really given it the attention maybe it deserves of its own pod. So
June 2, I think.
Yeah.
Correct me
And
if
that
I'm
was
wrong.
early days as well.
That was
wasn't
very
it?
early.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about early. We're going to talk about very early, actually, to be fair. So, most importantly, I'm actually going to put my neck out and I'm going to tell you what I believe, and I'll see if you agree with this, was the golden age of real-time strategy games. What they were, what platforms they were on, what the reception was like, and how the games actually, how they fare in kind of today's landscape. Yeah, do people still play them? Do they still get released, etc., etc.? Now, before we go any further, it's of course customary to kind of get a feel for where the genre sits in each of your gaming pasts. Yeah, I've got a little bit of an idea, but I don't know many more than that. So, Keith, I'll start with your good self. How's your RTS knowledge?
Do you know what RTS stands for? That's the first question.
RTS. I'm gonna abbreviate
Really
RTS.
tough.
Real time strategy for
Yeah,
those
I
that
know,
didn't
I know.
catch it in the intro. There, real time strategy. All right.
I've
if you
played
knew.
a few over the years. Obviously, you guys know I'm mainly a console gamer. And obviously, when you go on to talk about the golden age of RTS,
Yep.
obviously, I assume that's mainly going to be sort of PC based, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
But Dune 2, obviously, we talked about it before. I did play that a bit. Do you guys remember Herzog 2 on the Mega Drive?
Oh,
you
here we go.
that?
He's jumped the gun.
Oh, well, you did ask.
Yes.
You did
No, I
ask
did.
because that was. I
Yes,
think that was one of the first console RTS games. I played that quite a bit. Enjoyed that. Apart from that, I always found them too stressful.
Well,
I tend to panic under pressure.
I'm being attacked.
It's real.
Yes.
Real-time stressfulness.
That's it. Real-time stress. So, yeah, my background is quite minimal, really.
Right,
in
I
terms
appreciate
of
the
how many
honesty,
games I
though.
played,
So you might actually, we're going to go through a bit of a journey today.
Yeah.
So you might even find a few titles that you might think, hang on, I might have a go at that. Or in this day, I mean, let's face it, you got a kid, so nothing could be more stressful than that.
That's
so you
true.
might be able to
That
go
is
back to that again.
Or
So
maybe you guys can sort of point me in the direction of the less stressful.
well, there are some. believe it or not. So we'll come to that. But Dill, where do you kind of sit?
Same.
Yeah.
The problem with like the golden era of RTS games was that I had a Master System Mega Drive Amiga.
Yep. Amiga.
It wasn't really powerful enough to. I had a few weird RTS games on it.
Yep.
But stuff like Command and Conquer and all those other ones,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got into later. But I do remember playing Dune 2 on the Mega Drive, which I like. So that's pretty much it. So yeah.
Oh, we are going to talk about that. So we're definitely going to talk about. Of course we are. Adrian, come on.
Well, I was
like
thinking
me,
about
right?
this, and I think the RTS genre, at one point in my life, a few years actually, was probably my favourite genre of video games.
Yep.
So in the mid 90s to sort of late 90s, it really was my cup of tea. So when I first saw Dune 2, my uncle Victor got me a copy. I was like, what is it? I'd never heard of Dune before. I was very young and naive. I didn't even know what Dune was. And I was like, and I was like, you can actually control these little figures and characters and tanks. And I loved it. I loved the setting. I loved that kind of spice and sand kind of desert look. And I thought it was absolutely incredible in the Amiga. And then obviously it went to another stage and I got my PC and there was like Warcraft. And then there was Command and Conquer. And I was hooked. I couldn't believe it. And I became a Westwood Studios, number one fan, basically.
Like many others, yeah.
And as soon as the expansion pack came out, we got it, me and my brothers. Red Alert came out, we got it. Command and Conquer 2, we got it. Red Alert 2 and stuff, we got it. And then Warcraft 2. I play some more obscure ones, which I'll save for a bit later if that's cool.
Do, absolutely.
But Age of Empires, that it's such an incredible genre. And I think it's a shame. I kind of fell out of love with it a little bit at one stage. I will talk about it a bit later, I'm sure. Maybe where it sort of went downhill a bit.
We will.
But it does mean a lot to me, especially that sort of PC gaming, control the mouse. I couldn't imagine playing these games on a console, truthfully. Sorry, console lovers out there. But it really is made for mouse play, in my humble opinion. Absolutely incredible. I'm happy to talk about it a lot today.
Well, what you've just said there is probably the same kind of frame of mind that a lot of ex-lovers of RTS would probably be feeling. Yeah. So we'll kind of have a look at it, where it went and where we are now. Yeah. But keep some of those thoughts for later because they'll be very, very useful. So, for the benefit of pretty much Keith and Dill and anyone else out there who wants to know a little real-time strategy history and when the golden years were, I'm going to take you through this in a sort of whistle-stop tour, okay, if you like. So there are far too many RTS games out over the years out there to mention all of them, all right? But please do tag us and tell us on the socials to shout out your favourites, all right? Any unexpected gems over the years, anything we don't mention, because there are so many. Yeah, there are so many. I'm going to try and get in as many as I can. But if you don't hear your favourite, or you don't hear or even something really obscure, yeah, something that maybe wasn't a big hit but you really like, let us know about it, yeah. So it makes sense, of course. Let's start at the beginning, yeah. So a question for you chaps, all right. What is the first official, according to the Guinness World Records? No cheating. Put your phone away, Keith. What is the first official computerised strategy game? What do we think? And I'm going to give you one clue. Just think simple. I've got stunned, blank faces staring back at me.
Strategy game. So not many text-based adventures. Not
Would you class something like Battleships as a strategy game?
So you're yes, I would, but you're probably a little bit too complex.
Oh wow!
That wasn't. Let me say this though. That was an early strategy game. Yes, but it wasn't the early. It wasn't the first that was actually put out there.
Wow.
If you're really
hang on.
Oh, go on.
Noughts and crosses.
Yes, good man. Good. Wow, he's on fire. This guy. Yeah.
Tic-tac-toe.
Yeah. Tic-tac-toe. Yeah.
Absolutely. So it was actually a game called OXO. Yeah,
OXO.
Which is a version of Noughts and Crosses. It was designed by a man called Alexander S. Douglas in the US in 1952. Whoa. Yeah, going way back, 70 years ago. It was played on an EDSAC, which is an
that sounds a bit rude, doesn't it?
No. An electronic
on EDSAC.
An EDSAC.
On EDSAC. No.
Oh dear. Which is an electronic delay storage automatic calculator.
Lovely.
There you go. Not Ed's sack. Yeah. How about that? So I did bend the rules slightly on the question though. Yeah. I know. And I said strategy and not real time strategy. Yeah. So the difference being, for those that don't know, is that RTS has both or all players moving and fighting simultaneously, as opposed to using a turn-based system. Okay. And as we know, anything, as we said, battleships, turn-based, Noughts and Crosses, turn-based, lots of other things, turn-based. And I'm just waiting for Dylan to use that word that he always uses, tactics. There it is. And lots of those games are turn-based, yeah?
I was confused then. I was like, what does Game Pass have to do with that?
Game Pass is 2 words. So I will say this. Some do blur the lines between the genres a lot, and we're going to see that. There's a lot of games that sit kind of, I was going to use another word there. I was going to say straddle, but that's probably, but between genres, yeah. And we'll come back to that. This is going the wrong way now, isn't it? Really, we need to get back on track. So, to get to the first game in the genre that became real-time strategy, we've got to take a massive step forward through the years from OXO, from 1952.
Simply, what's that slogan again, OXO?
Bisto.
Oh, Bisto.
I was trying to think of some kind of pun involving stock, but
come back to us. Think about it.
Okay.
You got a pen over there. You got a laptop over there.
Well, I hope that guy's stock rose after releasing that game.
Oh, he's here all day again. So, what do we think the first sort of widely considered, fully fledged, bona fide RTS game released was, and what year?
Well, I'm going to get the buzzer because it's wrong, but I'm going to say Dune II, early 90s.
Good guess. Very well educated guess. Big name, but no, slightly earlier. And Keith, he's already said it.
I know. Hertzog's Way.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So in terms of,
I just assumed it was like the first console.
Bearing in mind that this is all very kind of opinion based.
Yeah.
All right. But there's a lot of traction behind the opinion that Herzog's Zwei was in fact the first fully fledged real-time strategy game with all of the elements.
I was there at the cutting edge.
Oh, so it was in fact as late as December 1989. So we assume that maybe it was before.
Yeah.
And I mean, and again, what we've already said, we assume maybe that would have been released on PC. No. It wasn't. So it was by Technosoft for Sega Mega Drive.
Yeah.
The game saw players having to use an aeroplane to place certain units in positions across a map to combat enemy forces and take over their base camp. So this style of play, you had on-screen units, vehicles, you could manage their positions rather than directly controlling like a single character, which obviously was very different to anything up to that point. So the game was actually really positively received, 3.8 out of 5 stars overall, and was praised by many for the fact that it showcased the Mega Drive as having a sort of computer type capability as well as being a console. Yeah. And that was, I mean, at that point, that was actually pretty unusual because if you think about all the games at that time that were on the console, it wasn't really anything like anything else.
No.
And really, wasn't like anything else even before it. So, but I mean, I can hear there's screams of people coming through the screens at me saying, that diehard RTS fans, that wasn't the first. Yeah.
Well, you're actually fine. The first one was.
Yeah, exactly. I'm waiting for that.
It was Herzog 1.
Indeed.
Good jokes today.
So, although Herzog 5 is considered to be the first out-and-out RTS game as we know them now, there were, in fact, a raft of other games that founded the beginnings of the genre, although didn't combine necessarily all of the elements at once. Yeah, hence why the opinion is the way it is. So there are the likes of War of Nerves from 1979 on the Magnavox Odyssey.
I like that title, though.
Yeah, War of Nerves. Sea Battle from 1980, pretty much a kind of a redressing of battleships,
Right.
And that was on the Intellivision. Others include 1982's Cosmic Conquest on the Apple II and Combat Leader from 1983 on the C64. And of course, Populous, 1989 on the Amiga. Come back to that in a sec. But in fact, there were actually 25 titles, often categorized as RTS. But really only under the general strategy banner, because some were turn-based, some had some elements of RTS, etc. So again, like I said, very blurred lines there that were released prior to Herzog's Fight, including the prequel called, and no, it's not called Herzog 1. It's just Herzog, yeah. So what's the deal? Well, there are several of those games that use turn-based system, which we've already said, that sits more in the kind of lone strategy camp. Some of these only had a handful of the features of the more developed RTS games, and some were just an out-and-out sim or what they call a god game. So Populous was
Civilization.
Yep, yeah. It was more city building and management as opposed to kind of having units, having to capture bases, that kind of thing. So we can argue, like
this. Sid Meier, basically. Sid Meier, he was those sort of games like Pirates and
absolutely
Colonization.
Outstanding games. And groundbreaking and just visually fantastic. Although where they kind of sit is
I wouldn't call them RTS, personally.
That's some places have them categorized as that. So, but there we go. And if you don't agree, fight me. Or just shout at me on the socials. I've got my big boy pants.
I'm kind of glad you're going that way because I was thinking about all SimCity and all simulation games. Does it really count? No, it's fine.
Yeah,
I like what you're doing.
I had to think long and hard about this, and it was kind of where do we sort of draw the line? But I get why Herzog's Fire is kind of that first defining moment because it has the battle, it has the bases, it has the building, that sort of stuff. Yeah. So, at this point, I suppose it's worth giving a very quick crash course to those who are pretty much new to the RTS genre, or those that haven't dabbled in a while, guys. Yeah, I mean, we know roughly what it is, but for those listening who are like, I never really played strategy games. I'm kind of more of a shooting fan. So the games in the RTS genre have you, the player, pretty much acting as a commander of your forces, groups of people or machinery across various maps with differing terrain. So the players normally always have a bird's eye view and can normally control all the units and buildings, and you could instruct them to carry out certain actions, requests at different or at the same time. Yeah, all in real time, hence the name Real Time Strategy. So a minimum of 2 players. So with the first kind of RTS games, that would have been human and AI. Yeah, so yourself and an AI. Later on, which we're going to talk about, you could have local area network, LAN parties, etc., with PCs set up, so you could play, your mates. And the goal is to either take control of enemy bases, zones, buildings, etc., or just destroy them via a number of different methods. Yeah. So, and as Keith said, stressful. It can be.
Yes.
Yeah, stressful. Absolutely. Especially when you get besieged by the enemy. They're like, I'm going up.
I just need time to think.
Pause.
You don't have time.
So our next stop, where are we? So well, before that, are we happy that we've kind of got the roots there? We've kind of, are we happy that kind of Herzog's Fire kind of sits there in where it does? Yeah. Good stuff. I'm glad you actually mentioned it at first, Keith, because that's good. They're giving you a bit of like plaudits there, which is good. And the earlier different types of games in that kind of sphere as well. It gave birth to the actual genre as we know it now. From here on out, it goes nuts. Yeah, it goes a bit crazy. All right, because the genre really does take off. And we're going to look at at how quickly it grows and over how short a period of time as well. Yeah. So we're going to go to good old 1991. Anyone remember that year?
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago, was it?
No, 9 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah,
That's what they always say. With a superb game by Sensible Software called Megalomania.
Which actually, I just saw yesterday that Jordan Freeman...
It's on Zoom platform now.
It's literally, I think he's remastered, or I don't know if it's the original exactly, but he's put it on Zoom platform.
Yeah.
And apparently GOG said it wasn't possible. So there you go. Put that in your...
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
GOG. No, but fair play to Jordan, and John Hare's involved in it. And Megalomania is a game I have played on the Amiga. I wouldn't say, it's not... I didn't put loads of hours into it. I found it quite difficult as a young kid, but I do respect it. It looks pretty cool. Top down, kind of sort of isometric, isn't it? Sort of 3D.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And it's a great looking game. It's really colourful. It's really bold. It was actually the first game to use a tech tree system. Okay, whereby players could assign researchers to develop different technologies that could be used on the field of battle. Okay, it was actually the first game to do that. The game saw players controlling one of 4 gods, and you needed to defeat up to 3 others on any given map using weapons and armies that can be created by building structures and developing tech.
And this was made before Populous, you saying?
This was after,
right.
So what Populous had basically, the whole premise is that you have followers.
Yeah.
And you garner obviously a bigger following, and the bigger following you have, the more you can do, etc. So it was more to do with influence rather than battle per se. Whereas these games that we're looking at now were more, you had to proactively go out and actually attack an enemy. Yeah. So very good friend of the show, gaming and graphic design supremo and all-round nice guy, Stu Cambridge.
He was involved,
Yeah. Actually worked on the artwork and visuals for this title. And I have this minute actually got, believe it or not, I actually had some words come through from Mr. Stu Cambridge about the game. Yeah, because he actually worked on it. So he says Megalomania, a game that I was very fortunate enough to have played before it was released. Fresh from my job interview at Sensible, I had seen a late build version of the game running on Chris Chapman's Amiga. It looked and sounded awesome. But do you know what really lit my fanboy fire? I love that saying. Being asked by Chris if I would mind testing it out on my new A1500, which at the time I had only recently bought. A couple of days later, I received the disc in the post. There's me sitting at my desk with the latest Sensible Software game in my hands. How the heck did that happen? I still find it hard to believe. I got the job and I was trusted with a copy of the game. Of course, the game worked like a treat. I think Chris had put in some test routines for me, which I spoke to him on the phone about. And well, that was my first introduction to Megalomania. I mean, to be fair, playing a game like before, like pre-release and it being that good, that says something, doesn't it, about the production quality. So not long after that, I joined the Sensible gang. MLM had been out for a while, and there was talk about doing a Sega Mega Drive version of the game. John asked me if I'd be interested in working with Jules on converting it to the Sega machine. How cool was that? I had no hesitation in accepting the job. I won't go into details of how we did it, but being part of this conversion duo, I got to play the game in test as we developed the console adaptation. Let me just say, I was never really into strategy games, but MLM managed to convert me. I later had the same experience with Sensible Soccer. Not being a player of football games, we kind of had this ability just to create good games irrespective of the subject matter. Yeah, and I think we'll agree that we don't even need to go into kind of how good they were. As I look back at the Amiga original, which I have to say was way ahead of its time in my opinion, with the sampled speech and gameplay dynamics, it is with a sense of gratitude that I not only got to see the game being developed, but became involved later in the conversion. I got to see some of the later graphics being drawn and the nitty-gritty of how it all worked from an insider's perspective. To this day, though, I cannot take credit for any of the original in-game graphics. John did a great job in their creation. I feel honoured. I got to bring those over to the 16-bit console versions without sacrificing the look and character along the way. Megalomania, what a game. It's proper sensitastic. Thanks, Stu. Literally, I literally just had that through. I've read that from my phone.
Hot off the press.
Literally hot off the press. So really appreciate that, because it's always great to have a bit of an insight into those types of games, especially groundbreaking games that pretty much nobody had kind of seen before. And one, as I said, with the whole tech tree thing. And as we know, the bunch of RTS stuff that came out afterwards followed that pattern of researching, building, etc. So we move on. After 1991, we're going to shuffle forward a year later for a title considered another building block in the genre with the release of, you've already said it about 5 times, Adrian. What is it?
Dune II, Battle for Arrakis.
Dune II, the Battle for Arrakis. So the game sees players step into a campaign taken on enemy bases and units across maps. With sandy and stone-like terrain, and which they can build on. Players must use harvesters to collect a mineral called spice, to convert to credits, which can be used to create buildings, troops, vehicles, etc. Now, the maps do vary in size, and the enemies differ in difficulty and robustness. And as the campaign progresses, players must fine-tune their strategy to take out enemy units and gain overall control of the area, which can be a lot easier said than done, given the options for movement and attack that are available. So that with these kind of games now, the saying "there's more than one way to skin a cat" was pretty much there was hundreds of different ways to win a round or a map, etc. Was there not, Adrian?
More ways to skin a sandworm.
Skin a sandworm.
Ooh, that'd be great. Can you imagine a sandworm skin?
Sandworm.
Question. One of the things I remember about Dune 2 was how the map was blacked out until you went out and explored that area.
The fog of war.
Was that quite standard with RTS games, or was that...
Yeah,
it was pretty much a main feature in a lot of those games.
Like
some
exploration is you've got to send
most
out a
still
scout
fogged
party.
out.
Yeah, some didn't use it. Yeah. Some didn't use it. And they sort of did it smaller areas, etc. But the ones with the big maps, because otherwise you'd be able to see everything.
So it was a big aspect of the game.
Yeah, because you had to then explore to find out where the enemy was, where they were hiding out, where the resources were, where the key points on the map, etc. So it was all about scouting, because that's part of the part. Otherwise, if you saw everything, you've got intel straight away.
Yeah, of course.
So I mean that's kind of, and that feature actually was pretty much a mainstay in the other games. Some didn't like it. There were critics that said games shouldn't have put it in, even some of the more popular games. So we'll come back to that in a bit. But you can never please critics, really, can you? To be honest. So.
Can you imagine, I reckon the critics being like in a really foggy. Can you imagine that? Got some dad sort of PTSD one day. I can't see.
Oh, I had a bad experience with fog.
Exactly. Just don't show them Silent Hill, right?
Just don't. Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Silent Hill 2 remastered. Yeah. Don't show them that.
Lots of fog. Smoke machine. Dune 2 was a big hit release. It was giving gamers a new way to interact and play their games via a controller management system, as opposed to like a platformer or shooting games that were around in at the time. So average scores for Dune 2 have it at 4 out of 5 stars. Lots of praise for the story and presentation and the mechanics and how it handled, and just basically how you could sit down and just play. Very engaging game. Yes. I haven't played it for a while, but I remember putting some serious hours into that back in the day. I think probably most of them around your house, actually, Adrian.
I wouldn't want to know how many hours I put into that game.
It's a lot. We used to talk about that game a lot. Yeah. But the game is still revered by many for being another groundbreaker in the genre. Some would say that Dune 2 received much of the plaudits and attention that Herzog should have got, being the first of its kind. Yeah. So, I mean, do we kind of agree with that? And if we open that up just a little bit, how many times have we seen a game which follows a first of something and gets the lion's share of attention? If there's a particular...
Dune was a popular thing, though, wasn't it? Like, You bring a game out called Dune.
It was a known license.
Yeah. Whereas Herzog's Fire was just like some...
It also had a strange German title as well.
Keith's brought out the wavy jazz left hand there. Strange.
It should, because like seeing it, because I used to read Sega Power a lot back in the day, and they have this little kind of brief bit about each game that they've reviewed so far.
In the back, yeah.
I just remember Herzog's Fire. It didn't really go into any kind of thing about it. It
clear
said
what
it was just like a 3 out of 5 game or something. 4 out of 5 game. We just never knew what it was. I just assumed for years that it was a shmup.
Yeah, even the art makes
you got shooting stuff.
It was made by Technosoft.
And
the art made it look like a shooter as
well.
Yeah,
so they don't know if they picked it right.
I mean, was that because they had to kind of make it like something else at the time?
Maybe.
I mean, because if they go too radical, then people just go, I'm not going to play that. It's too new, I don't like it. I mean, that's the risk in gaming, though, isn't it? You put something out that's brand new, groundbreaking, nobody's ever played it before. and nobody does play it.
Good example was the FPS game. Like Wolfenstein 3D was a big game. Let's not lie.
Yeah.
But Doom. I think
that's a great example.
Game.
That's a great example.
That turned non-gamers into gamers. Doom.
Yeah.
Well, you can go back to your beat 'em up pod as well, or Double Dragon pod.
Yeah.
Was it Renegade?
Yes, Renegade. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
people remember Double Dragon before they talked about
Renegade was a good release, in Japan, etc. But outside of that, it did relatively well. But Double Dragon,
Exactly.
I mean, you ask, you take 1,000 people, it's the same thing. And again, you take 1,000 people and say, which do you remember the most? They're going to say Doom out of Doom Wolfenstein. So that's a couple of great examples there. But there we are. So we now arrive at a bit of a tipping point for the whole genre, and in fact the whole industry, to be fair, and an acceleration for PC gamers the world over. Given that almost every single RTS game at that time was on the PC platform, and there's no kind of brain surgery needed here. It was due to the ease of use and the command issuing with mouse and keyboard. It was kind of made exactly for that. Yeah. Console players had it difficult with if they did get an RTS game, which was very rare. But the control system was normally very clunky, and they had very limited amount of kind of options available. So there was a bit of a calm before this revolution, though. 1993 saw a relatively modest set of releases. We had games like Stronghold, Alien Legacy, and Metal Marines. If anyone remembers any of those, no, like I said, modest. Mm-hmm. There were a couple of gems, though. 1993 saw Cannon Fodder released, which, despite being an amazing game.
Is that an RTS?
Not sure. Hold on. Despite being an amazing game, I still play it. I know everyone else dips in now and there. Some have it down as an RTS, believe it or not. Yeah. Some have it as a 2D scroller. Some have it as a shoot 'em up. Yeah. I've been to probably 10 websites. Yeah. that all have different tags for this game.
What would you define it as, Aid, if not an RTS?
I mean, it has an RTS element because you've got a group of soldiers and you have to manage them, don't you, into different areas to destroy enemy buildings and whatever.
Yeah. But there's no base building, is there?
There's no base building.
There's no research. Well, I don't know. I just think it's more of all action, guns are blazing. That's what I'll call it.
That's a good genre, thanks, Aid.
And all action, guns are blazing. I mean, it's a bit of a weird one, though, isn't it? Because I've actually got you thinking now. You're sitting there going, what is it? What is it?
So what is it?
We'll let the socials argue that one out. Tell us what you think Cannon Fodder is. Yeah. But 1993 also saw The Settlers released on the Amiga.
Yeah, and that is a great game, actually.
To a very positive reception as well, yeah. And although the game focuses more on the city building element, it still sits under the RTS banner. And I couldn't really do this pod without mentioning The Settlers.
Because you're right, it isn't the battle elements of it are quite limited and quite not its strongest point. It is about building your cities, but to open up your city, you do have to get rid of the enemies. So it's a small element. I'd call it more of a sort of city building settler kind of game, with a little bit of fighting.
I mean, it's a lot of places call it a sim. A city building sim.
It is RTS, isn't it? It's real time. It's not turn based.
No, and there is an enemy. It's not just a case that you're developing like an empire, or like you say, like a populace where it's about gaining followers and that sort of thing. And it's like I said, this becomes very tricky because there's a lot of games which sit between sometimes 2, sometimes 3. I'll allow it. Thanks for that. But yeah, I couldn't. We can't not mention The Settlers. Awesome. Yeah. So the tipping point for the whole genre though came in 1994. There was a little known title called Warcraft, Orcs and Humans. Yeah,
I've got a little story about that.
Go for it. Do it.
John Bitton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
good friend of mine, and he's a cool guy. I haven't seen him for a few years. I don't know when you guys last saw him, but he's a cool dude, and we used to be quite close friends actually. And
he had a PC with loads of those games, didn't he?
Well, that's the thing. We used to swap Amiga games quite often. My uncle Victor's games got, he lost his source, I think, or he moved on to PC. So they kind of dried up, but luckily I had John Bitton to help me out with Amiga games. But I remember going to his house once and going, should we play some Amiga? He had a CD32.
Yes!
I mean, that's cool, but it's like, we're not playing the CD32 today. Check this out. And he showed me this new PC. And this is before I had a PC. I was like, what is this? And at the time, we'd been playing Dune II quite a lot. He said, forget Dune II. This is what we want to see. And it's Warcraft. And I was like, what on earth? And we were playing that game for hours, man. humans versus orcs. I loved it. So Warcraft, and it was one of the reasons actually. I went back to my brothers and my family. Was like, we need a PC. We've got to play Warcraft.
We need a PC. Stat.
It was so good. Warcraft. It is. I love Warcraft. Actually, it's a tough one for me, but I think it's a brilliant game.
It is a very special game, and to be fair, you're not alone. It was massively popular. It was from Blizzard Studios, initially released on DOS. The game was pretty much adored by many because of the requirement of the skill of management of small groups of units.
Do you know what I like?
Their abilities.
If you clicked on the units, and I hope it's the first game as well, but I think it is. If you just click on an orc, yes. Come in.
That's it.
And you kept pressing on the same orc. They say, stop poking me.
Yeah, that's it. They get really stressed.
It's just little things like that. I know you shouldn't do that, but I just loved it.
But you did it anyway.
I did it also.
And you could use special abilities, attack patterns, etc., to complete objectives. The maps were really great as well. The resource gathering was really great. Your builders, they were very clever.
It was the colours. It was so vibrant.
Very bold.
You would think for a fantasy game, quite an orc scene to be quite dark and gloomy. But the first game, even the second one, to be fair, it was very colourful, bright, and it was. But it wasn't like a cartoon either. It was so engaging. I loved it.
It was, from what I remember as well, because I played that and the sequel, which we'll come on to. But I just remember it feeling really polished, really clean. There wasn't any kind of glitches or bugs or any kind of sharp areas or bits. It was all very kind of tidy. And I don't know. Something about it just was really engaging. So yeah, great story, and I'll agree with that. But it also expanded on things like from previous games, mission depth, design of the maps, as we've just said, and it really pushed the competitive multiplayer element, which is the reason why many say this game was the start of a boom for the genre. It scored big on reviews, and it actually racked up over 300,000 units in sales in a relatively short period of time. Was recognised in several gaming publications as well. So Warcraft was firmly on the map, as so to speak.
And I think, and again, James, you might say you're wrong here, but I think one negative of Dune 2, and I love the game, but one negative is if you wanted to control units as click here, go there, do individual unit movements. But I think Warcraft, and I might be wrong here, so correct me, but you could select, like almost draw a box around how many units you wanted.
Correct.
And that made
because Dune 2, I remember it was just like click and go.
Yeah, and it was
click
frustrating.
Yeah.
Whereas Warcraft, you held your right mouse button, or maybe left down, you drew a box or a rectangle, and that you could select 4 or 5, maybe 10 units.
It was left click, and then it was drag, and you could then select whoever you wanted, which that changed things completely because
it sounds so simple, but it made a huge difference. And I know that Command and Conquer, which I know you're going to talk about, I'm pretty sure you're going to talk about, that also brought that in as well. And it's just a better game, overall. But Warcraft was awesome, man.
Yeah, it's a great, and such a great subject as well. Orcs and humans. So I don't think anyone had kind of done anything like that before. So I do want to mention at this point, as we kind of continue on the journey, a release that happened in 1995 on the Atari Jaguar CD. Yeah, and the reason I'm mentioning this, because Adrian's always been a fan of the Jag CD.
Baldies.
Yes! How did you know that?
Because there's not many. It's
all right, fair enough.
CD.
Okay,
it's the only RTS and Jag CD.
All right. But that's the reason I'm kind of dragging this one out. But I mean, the other reason that this deserves a shout out is for the Bat Poo crazy storyline as well. This game's called Baldies, and it was on the Jag CD, as we said. But you control the Baldies, who are a group of short, plump, and bald characters. Yeah, and they have to take on armies of enemies called the Hairies. I'm not making this up.
It's basically like me versus you lot.
The Baldies and the Hairies, yeah.
Follically challenged, yeah.
Follically challenged,
but the game fared all right with critics. Some actually really liked it, to be fair. And ports were actually due to be made for the Amiga CD32 and the 3DO, but they never happened. I'm not being funny. It sounds like a kind of game I'd love to play. Yeah, just for the comedy value.
It's gone too much. I've interviewed the man that made it. On our podcast, he's blimey, my brain. I should know, shouldn't I? It's
you've done a lot of interviews, mate.
I've done a lot.
I was going to say, be easy on yourself. But anyone? I mean, I'd love to know if anyone out there's got a copy of the Baldies. Yeah, I mean, anyone out there, tell us. Tag us in the socials.
I don't want to ask how much Adrian sold this copy for.
No, I don't remember.
No, but we'd like to know how much they're worth now. Hey. No, honestly, if you've got a copy, then do tag us in it, because that'd be amazing to see that. Adrian's going to find out who it was, and he'll come back to that in a minute. So I'm going to carry this train on. I'm going to carry this wagon on. So moving on to a release during the same year, 1995. You may not have heard of this one. It was by Westwood Studios, and it was called Command and Conquer.
What?
What's this? So what Warcraft had begun in terms of a huge era for RTS games, Command and Conquer was continuing in emphatic style. So if there are any listeners who haven't somehow managed to play Command and Conquer or even seen it, firstly, how? The game was huge and still is, to be fair. And secondly, get hold of it and have a play.
Well, one thing you can play it via.
Go for it.
Game Pass.
Yay! So we got tactics in there, we got Game Pass in there. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the pod. Thanks for listening.
Well, you guys won't have noticed, but I sort of treated myself to half a gaming PC now. So my old PC tower went kaputski. It's over there in my bookcase over there at the bottom.
Yes.
And all it's missing is a graphics card, but it's using the sort of integrated graphics at the minute. But a lot of Game Pass stuff works on it real well. So
nice.
I was like, I might try a little bit of Command and Conquer.
Oh, so you've got it back now? You've decided to go back on the Game Pass?
Yeah.
Okay, so you came off from
Mate, it was £1 for 3 months. What am I going to do?
You had withdrawal symptoms. You were
What am I going to do?
Game Pass, I need it.
I've worked out a bit of a fix. A bit of a life hack for people who don't want to pay £10 for every month. If you go off it for about 2-3 months, they come back and try and get you with the £3 for a month, 3 months for £1 thing. That's exactly what they did for me.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
And I just play my backlog, and it was like, what a deal! Please have
Dylan Martin Lewis Raj.
There you go. There you go. I might not be able to save electricity.
It can save you 30 quid on your Game Pass.
You are welcome.
There you are. That's what we're here for.
Just to interrupt,
Yes,
the producer of Baldies and all round good guy.
He's all right.
He gave a great interview actually. Called Farron Thomason, and he's worked with Nintendo, Atari, and Sega. I don't think there's many people in the world that can boast that.
That's a hell of a CV.
And he made Baldies, and Baldies. I found it annoying playing it because you had to use the JAG controller, and that's almost a perfect controller. But for mouse games,
Stop you there.
Hang on, before we get into a fist fight over the table.
For mouse-based games, it just doesn't quite hold up. So I did find Baldies a bit clunky to play. But
it was almost perfect. Is that right?
I'm chucking it out there. But back to this Command and Conquer. I never heard of this game before.
Yeah, we talk about tangents here. Jesus, yeah. So the game of Command and Conquer, the little known one that we're talking about, sees a setting of an alternate history. All right, with two factions embroiled in a war with each other, and they've got to win it at all costs. But Command and Conquer for the player gives you full control over base building, tech research, and vehicle and troop creation. So the combinations were enormous for you to be able to kind of develop your armies, and also where to deploy them and being able to control them across the whole map as well. So many options. So due to the more kind of modern era style of setting, the scope for the arms, vehicles and tech was massive. So players pretty much had endless combinations of units, structures to utilize when trying to destroy or disarm the enemies. So the added string to the bow was that Westwood further developed the whole land support scenario. So they really pushed that, meaning that your on-screen enemies quite often, if you're having a LAN party, were in fact your mates that you were competing on the same network against, which was so cool. I mean, there weren't enough hours in the day, were there, really, to sit down and play? I mean, just playing against the AI as well would take you hours, like on a skirmish, wouldn't it? I mean, if I remember correctly, you go to a skirmish, 3 hours later, you're not even halfway through.
Do you have a name for the good guys and bad guys? I can't remember the names now. They're
Yes.
Oh, you do? Okay.
No.
Okay. I was just trying to remember.
Write it down.
The two factions.
And now what's happened is I've forgotten because you put me on the spot.
Yeah,
so you're going to find that out as well.
That's right.
That's it.
Nod. Even I remembered that. Yeah,
Nod.
That's the
I
bad
forgot
guys,
the other
isn't
ones. I was used to choose them. What was the other ones?
Nod were the bad guys, weren't they?
Yeah.
Nod. Give them a nod.
And we sound like right noobs now, but
We're noobs. Well, we've done a Command and Conquer podcast, haven't
We're
we?
old. We're good.
Did we? I'm sure. Haven't I made that up in my head?
Yes. No.
Ow.
We haven't. So anyway, whilst Adrian's kind of looking that up, the game was, of course, an enormous success. It was nominated for and won several awards. It was named Game of the Year by several publications, including Computer Games Strategy Plus, and saw sales surpass 500,000 units worldwide in a relatively short space of time. It did receive a few negative pokes, though, for how some missions were very puzzle-like. So there was only a certain way to complete a certain mission. On single player. That was on the campaign. So that wasn't obviously with skirmish and multiplayer. And the fog of war divided opinion, as we said, on impacting gameplay. But they were pretty much insignificant, due to all the positive stuff. Yeah. They were just a few little pokes. Excuse me. But yeah, a huge game. It was totally different to Warcraft because it was a more modern setting. It was modern armies, guns, tanks, etc. Warcraft was a totally different market because it was more medieval fantasy type. Yeah. Which was very clever, I think. I think the two studios going after completely different audiences, was exactly the right move. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the RTS bulldozer continued to gain momentum. Warcraft Tides of Darkness was released in 1995. I mean, how it was even better than the first one is beyond me, but it was.
It brought in, as it hinted in the title, more sea battle, air battle, didn't it? It brought more elements, land and air and ground.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Command & Conquer had flying vehicles back then. I know they later brought it in, but this is quite a new thing, though, isn't it? The fact that you feel like Diddy Kong Racing. It's no longer underground.
You can't fly. Whoa. Hold on a minute. Command & Conquer's like Diddy Kong Racing.
No.
Oh, sorry. Warcraft is like Diddy Kong Racing.
Think about it.
You heard it here first, ladies.
You've got the carts on the ground. You've got the
right, you know.
the aeroplanes where you can fly, and there's flying like big balloons in Warcraft 2, if I remember correct, like kind of big airships.
That's
and
right,
also, there's boats. And there's there's not hovercrafts in Warcraft, you can imagine. Orcs, bring out the hovercrafts!
Well, it's like a landing craft, isn't it? It's like a transport for the troops.
Well, it's like Command & Conquer now.
No. In Warcraft, there's like a little ship that's
there's definitely pirate
transport.
ships and stuff. Yeah.
What Adrian is really saying is that Diddy Kong Racing is better than Mario Kart 64.
How have we right? Listen. I'm going to get on with you lot in a minute, right? We real time strategy pod, and we're now arguing about Diddy Kong Racing and Mario Kart. How has that happened? It's not even the same genre.
But this, he can say it without anyone shouting at him.
Rob's not here. It's fine.
You and Rob started that argument about 4 years ago.
Oh, I know.
It's still going.
Dear, oh dear. Right. Am I allowed to carry on now?
Yeah, sorry.
Hashtag hijack, yeah. So the good thing about the likes of Warcraft as well, they would release lots of add-ons, lots of add-ons and extras, which if you loved, the kind of core game, it gave players even more sort of game time to sink their teeth into. And by this point, titles were now being released thick and fast. Several studios were vying for overall market share, with the likes of Blizzard, Westwood, LucasArts, and ID Software all keen to build on a big past and current success. And actually, Blizzard and Westwood, I would say, was the most prominent. They developed a particular rivalry that a lot of people consider was the fuel for the RTS boom in the mid to late 90s. Because they were just so determined to be the better game, they were pushing out top quality stuff. There was nothing left to chance. And I'd love to have been in some of the development meetings when they were saying, oh, Blizzard's done this and they've got this feature and they've got flying, airships and they're now got, planes and all this sort of stuff. And then, what do they do? They do exactly the same thing and go one better and create even better units. Yeah. So it was literally a game of one-upmanship between those two. It's fantastic. So I'm going to give you an idea of that boom. All right. Now, rather than go through individual titles, I'm just going to give you a kind of a rundown. Yeah.
But before you do that,
go on.
I remember around this time, mid 90s, or say mid to late 90s.
The boom time.
And I remember getting a PC Gamer magazine. I think it was PC Gamer, but my uncle used to give me loads of magazines. Yep. And there was a whole magazine literally dedicated to RTS games, so the upcoming RTS games.
Yep.
And I might be completely wrong here.
Was it, I mentioned one a little while ago, was it Computer Games Strategy Plus?
It might be.
That was one that rated a couple of them really highly.
I just remember this magazine going, at the moment, and it's so many years ago now, but at the moment, in development, there's about 50 RTS games.
Yeah.
And this is like, they're all planned to come up next year. I'm like, how can you have 50? I mean, I don't think they all, obviously didn't all come out in the end.
Yeah.
But I was like, I love this genre, but even I can't play 50 of these bad boys. Can you imagine?
Well, considering the amount of time it takes to play a game like that successfully and to kind of get the most out of it, there's no way. I mean, you could. I mean, to be fair, I was playing like Command and Conquer for a couple of years, before I'd really kind of gone right. I'm kind of done with it now, yeah. But to give you an idea, and that's a nice little segue. Thank you very much. Into the following years and some of the stuff that was released. Some of them you might have heard of, some of them you may not. But again, we're quite highly rated.
I hope you mention one. But if you don't,
you can chip in. So 1996, we had this. We had a sequel to Command and Conquer, which was Red Alert. Again, the same could be said about that as we said about Warcraft, Tides of Darkness. Amazing.
Red Alert, in my humble opinion, is probably my favourite Command & Conquer game. I think it's the best. It's just brilliant.
I'd probably agree.
It just ticked every single box, but didn't go ridiculously crazy like a few of the future ones. Yeah. Everything was on point. I think originally it was supposed to be an expansion pack, but they thought, hang on a minute, this has turned out so good, it needs to be its own game. It was Command & Conquer plus.
I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
Because it's such a good game, and it stands up today. To be fair,
I never played it. I'm actually going to get onto
it's
it.
The best.
Out.
Yeah, but you know where it is?
Go first.
It's fine.
Did that come out on the 32-bit consoles?
Yeah,
I know Command & Conquer came out on the Saturn. Not sure about Red Alert.
Come out on the PlayStation, maybe.
I'm sure Red Alert was. It was. Because obviously the first Command and Conquer was so successful, they thought, you know what, this needs a bit more exposure. But massive game. Still talk about it now. 1996, also maybe a lesser known game called Gene Wars. Remember Gene Wars?
Yeah, I've played that, and it's
so have I.
It's an interesting game, isn't it?
It's a strange one.
Made by I know the company,
Bullfrog.
Bullfrog. That's it. One of their last games, really.
Yep.
I gave it a few hours. I liked it, but it was a bit too.
It's quite niche.
Yeah,
I think is the word. I when I looked at. I mean, I remember playing it. I haven't played it, for a long time. But essentially, it's about you've got to edit the terrain. It's kind of it's more of a nature science fiction type game.
Splice DNA together and make weird creatures.
You basically crossbreeding species of certain animals and stuff, and you have to create different animals,
like a monkey giraffe.
Yeah, something like that.
Zebra turkey fish.
If
Zebra turkey fish, nice.
If
that really exists, doesn't it?
If that's what blows your skirt up, then go for it.
Is it?
Do you want to hear something really? No, I'm going to. Should I do it?
Go on.
A zebra is a land animal. A turkey is an air animal. And a fish is an underwater animal, so you can link that particular animal to Warcraft 2 and Diddy Kong Racing. I did it.
I'm going to walk away in a minute. Seriously, this is.
I mean, I've never seen a flying turkey. But, I mean, do they fly?
Have you seen Rocky when Paulie chucks the turkey out? You want the bird? Go get the bird.
You want the bird? Go get
He's such a. That's his lowest point.
What Adrian is saying is Diddy Kong Racing is better than Mario Kart 64.
Sorry, James. Sorry.
How have we got to this point? Why did I sign up for this? Oh man. Anyway, I don't even know where we were. What were we talking about?
You're talking about Gene Wars and
Gene Wars. Yes. Where were we? 1996. Good year. There's a game called Z. Remember a game called Z?
That's an interesting game.
That was by the Bitmap brothers.
Really difficult.
Do you want to tell us what
hard
it was
as
about?
nails. It's more. The maps are quite small. There's only certain. I don't know. It's hard to explain, like grids almost, and you have to build up bases. It's a little bit different. It's almost more. How do I explain it? It's tough. It's one of the hardest games I've played, but it's very engaging, very fun. Good sort of sense of humour to it.
It's very heavy on the strategy. You can't.
No.
There's not as many options to kind of defeat the enemy.
If you get your timing a little bit off, you're dead.
Yeah, it's two armies of red and blue robots.
That's right.
And they battle to conquer different planets. Essentially,
there was a sequel as well.
Yeah, it was. And you have to essentially control certain structures to produce units and use those in battle. So as you're controlling it, every few seconds you get a unit pop out. So it's not so much a base building type thing. It's more of a control an area type thing. But again, still under it looked a bit nuts, to be fair.
Little recommendation: don't play it, Dylan. You won't like it. It's too difficult for you.
And Keith, definitely don't play it.
There's no
really stressful.
It's too stressful. Yeah,
really stressful.
I got to about level 4, maybe. I was like, I can't get any further. I'd give up.
Yeah,
you would say it's real-time stressing.
Real-time stress-y game. Definitely. Same year we had the Settlers 2, and there were after that several other sequels and spin-offs. They're still going now. There's still games on probably Game Pass, I've no doubt. I've no doubt, definitely on Xbox anyway, and various other platforms. And that was Blue Byte. Sorry.
Yes.
97 was Age of Empires by Ensemble. This was a historical real-time strategy game, and you had to essentially guide an ancient civilization through 4 ages.
Amazing.
Stone, tool, bronze, and iron. So
I want to have a go at that. Yeah, I've been eyeing it for a while.
It's actually an excellent game, and people argue which is the best one. I don't know.
There are a few.
There are a few, and it's just brilliant. I have to say, it's a little bit more for me about building your base carefully and so forth. There's fighting, but I think the base building is the biggest element personally. It's a great game. It's a great game, actually. It's fun. And we've had an interview with quite a few chaps that have made it.
Yeah.
I'll send you all the links later, James. We'll put it in the show notes, but there's loads of people that spoke about it. It's massive. And sometimes I repost my interviews on social media sites.
Occasionally.
Sometimes
I retweet them.
Sometimes you see Tumbleweed and does nothing. Sometimes you get downvoted. So why are you sharing this again, you jerk? But whenever I reshare, I'm just being nice. If I ever on Age of Empire sort of forums, they lap it up and oh yeah, this is brilliant. Thanks again for showing it. Blah, blah, blah. And it, honestly,
but it's a different. To be fair, I don't think you could have done a historical necessarily RTS game on that scale with the computing power prior to that. I think that would have been a bit of a struggle, to be fair. Yeah. But I mean, again, another different game. It's a historical take rather than the fantasy kind of take, as it were. 100%. So, another direction that went in. 1997, one of my personal favourites, Total Annihilation, by Cave Dog. I remember like borrowing that from you at one point, Adrian, and it blew me away. Rather than it being a human-based sort of army, it's all machinery. So you build robots that have different tasks. You can build fusion reactors. You can do flying transports and gunships. It's mad. The maps are huge, and it focuses on the multiplayer and the skirmish type thing.
Total Annihilation, all I remember, because I loved it, but my brother Chris he still plays it today. There's like mods, there's like a new version of it. I think it's open source now. I can't remember what it's called now. Sorry, Chris, if you're listening. But it's a Total Annihilation kind of, not spin-off, but it's really for modern computers. Same graphics.
Yeah.
Some of the spaceships you can make towards the end of the game are, I'm not joking, about a third of the screen. You move them around. They're huge and they're so powerful. And the lasers and the explosions, it's absolutely incredible game. It's fun. It's frantic. It's fast. It's
stressful.
Very hard.
Stressing.
Again, I had to say, I found Command and Conquerors and the Warcraft a bit more user friendly, a bit easier. But I did find Total Annihilation. I mean, if
you were into the genre. Yeah. I would definitely say, if you've not really gone into the genre, definitely have a look at Warcraft and Command and Conquer as a place to kind of like dip your toe in and have a go at the campaign or whatever. Whereas Total Annihilation was almost a level up or several levels up. I think if you play Total Annihilation before you've done anything else, you're going to be like, right, I'm scarred for life. Yeah, it's mad. It's chaotic. It's full on, but it's such a good game and one of my personal favourites. Still play it now, and it stands up every time I play it. It's like you always find something new to do, don't you? New combination of something. 97. Following that, we had something called Dark Colony by SSI. Not many knew about this, but it did gain a little bit of notoriety for something. It was set on Mars, fighting alien creatures like the big-eyed, big-headed dudes. The classic alien setting. Base building, lots of guns. But it gained a little bit of notoriety because it had such a violent opening video sequence. Oh. Now, if you haven't seen this, go onto YouTube, type in Dark Colony 1997 and have a look at the opening scene. It's about 2.5 minutes. It's horrendously violent, almost comedically so. Yeah. But, in 1997 PC graphics, that is, So there's, it's kind of, you have to draw the line somewhere. And then in 1998, we had something called Battlezone. Now, not to be confused with the original Battlezone. Yeah. But it was pretty much nothing like the original arcade, but it did feature tanks. So it was more of a tank shooter. Resource gathering, unit building, but really most people remember it as just an out-and-out tank shooter, and that was by Activision. So yeah, this brings us nicely to the end of the millennium, in 1999, when we saw one of, if not the first more modern RTS game releases on a console. Obviously we saw Herzog back in 89 on the Mega Drive, but Dune 2000 was being ported to the PS1.
Yep.
Others would become available, Populous the Beginning, Jeff Wayne's War of the Worlds, and a game called KKND, Crush, Kill and Destroy. I like the sound of that. Yeah. So despite the PS1 and then the PS2 seeing RTS releases, the vast majority was still on PC, of course, and Mac. With the controls and commands of the genre being, far more suited to the mouse and keyboard, as we've already said. So another big name that appeared as we crept up to the millennium was Starcraft. Yeah, obviously.
99.
Yes, it was 99. Space-themed RTS installment of the Warcraft series, still played today worldwide, with all of the add-ons, and they just keep adding on and
many
expanding.
people see it as the best. The StarCraft series, for some people, not me personally, but for some, they do believe it's the best RTS game out there, or series.
I can see why, because it took what Warcraft had and it made it into the space theme, which then you could just expand into forever and ever and ever. And it's kind of got, a similar following to like World of Warcraft type stuff. Totally different, but massive following nonetheless. So the releases were still appearing thick and fast through 99 and into the millennium. And this kind of ushered in an era to what some would call a bit of an oversaturation of the game type.
Before you step into the year 2000, can I chip in with a game that I particularly enjoyed?
Give us another one. Hit me.
It came out in 1999. And it's a bit of a niche game, but I remember seeing it in the magazine, and I thought, wow, this is a bit different. And you may say, what are you on about, Adrian? It's a typical tank RTS game called Warzone 2100. It's the usual kind of setting, build your units, build your bases, blah, blah, blah. But I remember reading it and going, wow, in this particular game, I don't know if you ever played it, James, and I think Steve's a fan. I've got a feeling Steve White.
I think he is. And yeah, I think I have played it, but it's going to be one of those ones that I played back in the day and then probably forgot in the mire of all the others that were
This one stood out for me because in this particular game, you could design units and you could customize and have so much customization. You could choose the kind of the body of the tanks, the wheels, you could choose the kind of weapons that go on top, and the amount of, and you could build better tanks and research stuff. I think you can make thousands of different types of units towards the end. It's absolutely astonishing.
Massively customizable.
And it's fully 3D as well. I appreciate the ones you've spoken about were getting towards that angle. But it's a fully free, it's sort of top down, but you can sort of scroll around quite easily. Warzone 2100, I absolutely adored. A very difficult game, I have to say, but it's something a bit different. I think made by Pumpkin Studios. Anyone heard of Pumpkin Studios before? No. They soon closed. No. Warzone 2100 didn't last a lot. It didn't. Unfortunately, it was released on the PS1 as well, believe it or not. But an absolutely astonishing game. And actually, it's available now. You can play it completely free, like an open source. It's like a free to download game.
Probably on Game Pass as well.
It might well be. But I just want to give that a little shout because it tried to do some different things. It gave you a real customization.
I think that the difficulty with that was that it was almost a bit too late. And I mean, those kind of games, like credit where credit's due, because they were trying something different. But sadly, I don't think it stuck. But there we go. No. Warzone 2100, good shout.
Yeah.
But we sadly do move towards the oversaturation, some say, as the game type. You had a lot of multiplayer sequels. They didn't fare as well, or anywhere near as well as the originals. And other standalones that were released were too kind of alike the already established games to make a name for themselves and create their own kind of unique stamp. So there are some notable titles in the kind of quagmire, as it were, that delivered a standout experience from the sea of competition. So we had Sudden Strike. Do you remember that one? It was a almost like a World War II sim to a degree.
Okay.
No, very, very difficult, but looked amazing. Yeah, you had to spend hours on that one. Shogun Total War, Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, and Cossacks Art of War. Do you remember Cossacks?
Yeah, rings a bell.
I'd never played it, but it's I think it got a lot of positives, and that was during the early part of the millennium. But it wasn't until around 2006 when EA released the game called Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth 2, on the Xbox 360 that a different console audience were kind of brought on board. Yeah, because until then it was, like we say, it was all PC. So the original had only ever been released on the PC. So Battle for Middle-earth was only on PC. So this particular title, the second one, had a full bespoke Xbox 360 interface and control system, pretty much the first one to do it. It used the console's control pad and the array of buttons, and clever use of the triggers as well to expose and retract a building menu. So you held the trigger down and almost like a crescent came out, and then as you let it go, the menu disappeared. It really very clever and very intuitive as well. And it leveled up the playing field between console and PC, especially when battling online, because I believe it was crossplay as well. I may stand corrected on that, but it obviously that was a huge opportunity then for players of that game, and it was pretty successful. I've ploughed a lot of hours into that one because I absolutely love it. Loads of Lord of the Rings locations. It's all licensed, etc. So you get all the music, you get all the the imagery and that sort of stuff. So you can fight as your Gondors, your Isengards, etc., etc. Generally well received. Some critics said it lacked the full scope of the Lord of the Rings universe. But I mean, at the time with an Xbox 360, I don't think you could have gone any more grandiose because you just didn't have the computing power. Yep. Now, maybe different, but is there an appetite for it? Who knows? Yeah,
you're just waiting for Amazon to pump $1 billion into a video, to a series, aren't we? Maybe that'll get people.
Maybe it will off the back. Maybe it will off the back of Rings of Power. Who knows? So after the second wind of real-time strategy, sequels and spin-offs, they continue to arrive in franchises like Settlers. You had Warhammer: Dawn of War, Command and Conquer, now under EA. They carried on releasing things like Tiberian Sun and
but that's why it's on Game Pass.
Again, James, I don't want to step on your toes, but there's a few reasons why I think the series sort of got bloated, and they almost shot themselves in the foot a little bit, because some of the latter Command and Conquer games, and I remember it was for me distinction from the big box PC games to the very slim ones. I was like, oh, okay, and that was that kind of coincided. So I think it was Command and Conquer 3, maybe even or Red Alert 3, maybe. I can't remember the exact one, but it was like, what is this? This is not proper. This is crazy, man. And then they brought out that FPS Command and Conquer game, which I just
it didn't work.
I felt out of love with it, and I think also. Again, I'm probably jump on your toes a bit here. Warcraft 3, which I might want to talk about a little bit if you don't mind in a second. That almost showed Blizzard that the kind of element of having these big sort of leaders of your clan who you can upgrade and give them spells. That was I think it came out before World of Warcraft. So they kind of thought, Warcraft 3 was quite successful, but a lot of the game was like these individual characters. Why don't we just make a proper open world MMPO, whatever it's called, World of Warcraft game.
Multiplayer online role-playing game.
That's right. Yeah. So, I wish they almost played it a bit safer in a way. They almost thought, we've got to add this, and this, and it got too far.
I think that tells us about the time period in which it was happening, though. Those studios thought they had to keep pushing harder and putting more things in. And the thing is, more sometimes is never better, especially in games. Yeah. People like what they know, and, we spoke before about brand new stuff that's coming out that's completely groundbreaking. People are like, give that a wide berth. It's just such a difficult thing to gauge, isn't it? But there we are. That's kind of where we were at the moment. And I mean, games were still delivering. People were still buying them, but it was a much more saturated and fast-paced market versus the mid to late 90s. It was becoming more and more difficult to stand out, and as we kind of move into the late noughties, the FPS and racing market for games was absolutely exploding. You had titles, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was the first Modern Warfare game, exploded. You had the likes of Fallout, Far Cry, Turok, who I know you've spoken to the guys, Adrian, that made that. Again, another successful game. And things like Need for Speed, Most Wanted, and Carbon, big racing games, that were kind of taking the reins. And they gained the biggest followers. They really did. There were some standout titles which did relatively well. Halo Wars, for example, off the back of the original Halo release, not as well as I think they'd hoped.
Yeah.
But it was still a relatively good release. Starcraft sequels, add-ons, etc., always going to do well. And remasters and remakes of things like The Settlers and Command and Conquer. But ultimately, the golden age of RTS games had well and truly come to an end, I would say, and I'll give you my verdict on when exactly I thought that was. Yeah. So this brings us to today, right now. And the opinion across kind of all console platforms definitely is that the RTS genre desperately needs a new lease of life with some big titles. There's so many people that and again, this is gaming forums, this is things like Facebook, Instagram, just people chatting to people about gaming and stuff like that. There are so many people that play both PC and console that say console really needs a couple of big RTS titles. It's just been neglected for so long. I mean, PC players, you can access the likes of the Steam platform where, there's hundreds and whatever games of things that you don't get on console. Yeah. Yes, we've got Game Pass. I know that, Dylan, before you come in there. But console players don't really have that depth of choice. But I want to throw a question out just quickly, and everyone listening as well. So get in touch with this one to give us a shout. Do we think that there could be a console kind of RTS heyday in this day and age of gaming? And why do we think there never really was one in the first place? Yes, we know the control element, but it can be done. Look at Battle for Middle-earth 2. Very intuitive, very easy to use, leveled the playing field. Why didn't other studios, do that? And could they do it now? What do you think?
I wonder if it was just always a feeling that it would be too niche.
Okay.
For console gamers.
That's a fair point.
For console gamers.
Because console developers tend to gravitate towards the people pleasers, don't they? Like
whatever's popular.
So first-person shooters.
Racing.
Sports games.
Sports games. I've got, and as I say, I've heard it not just at one time and not just from one person. I've actually heard the rumblings of this for months and months and months. And there's been so many people, like I'll go on PlayStation forums or Xbox forums or whatever. There are people crying out and saying, look, we'd love to get a really good quality AAA RTS game, because the multiplayer scope now is massive.
Because there's so many huge licenses that Sony and Microsoft have got that, that they
it's
could
a phone call away, isn't it?
To do, whatever, Star Wars, whatever, a huge license and build that into an RTS. There'd be a market for it, definitely.
And I think that there are some that get swallowed up by not being advertised very well, perhaps, or whatever.
Is there a Star Wars RTS? That would be
yes, there is. It's late noughties, I think. But again, I think that the advertising and what just wasn't really up to scratch. Right. So there was a lot of people that didn't know about it. But you're right, I think.
Here's one. I never even really watched it. On. What about a Game of Thrones RTS?
There you go. Bam.
There you go. Done it for you.
Can we change how it ends? Are we allowed to change how it ends then? Is that all right?
Well, if you do it based on House of the Dragon, then, you can. But great shout. Loads of units, loads of places. Yeah.
So there's so many of those kind of licenses, because that's how they would do it, wouldn't they? For that brand recognition
and they need to change their mindset. The way things are going now, you hinted earlier, Dylan, is they're too scared to try new things. And an RTS on a console, you're going to get the big wigs in Sony and Blizzard. No, that's not successful. No, that won't work here. It wouldn't. They're not going to do it unless they change their mindset. Cool. I was playing Mirror's Edge the other day, and I really like Mirror's Edge, by the way. I think it's a great game. And spoiler alert, I got the sort of updated version, but I was reading some history behind it, and EA was so reluctant to ever make another Mirror's Edge that eventually they subsided. All these fans go, we need it, we remake it, blah, blah. They just done a remaster version. It's really interesting. Mirror's Edge Catalyst. And if you guys ever played it's not even a sequel. It's kind of a weird remaster.
I played the original, but not the remaster.
It's bizarre, and I might one day do a pod on it because it's quite an interesting story. But then, but that didn't do particularly well. Now they're too scared. They'll be too scared. And I hope someone proves me wrong.
But then this. Look at the. And I know we're sort of edging into the modern gaming sort of zone here. But I mean that just speaks volumes about what's going on at the moment. Look at the amount of remakes, remasters. Look at the amount of add-ons. Look at the amount of As I say, I've mentioned. I mean, it loathes me to mention it, but look at the Call of Duty universe. Yeah. It's just been redone and re-rinsed to death. But the fact is, there's people still buy it, but there is an appetite for something different, I think.
But James, again, I don't want to. I hate being a negative person because that's not my mentality.
Your bag.
But they redone Warcraft 3. I think it's called Warcraft Reforged or Forged or something like that. I can't remember exact word.
I think Reforged is correct.
And it got terrible reviews. And Blizzard were like, well. It just was a poor. I haven't played the conversion truthfully. I played Warcraft 3 properly, and it's a really good game actually. But they were like, "This has got so much negative press," and this is before the real negative press of Blizzard. Let's be completely honest. But I think that if you get all that negative press, you probably think, "Well, what's the point of ever going into this genre ever again?" And I'm not defending Blizzard because they did a poor conversion or they wanted to remaster it, but they took away a lot of features and stuff. I'm like, come on! But they're probably thinking it's not worth the hassle. So
it's a shame because it needs more than one studio to kind of step up, because you need a couple of studios to start going, right, they've done this, we need to be better. They've done this, we need to be better. Westwood, Westwood and Blizzard. But will we see it? I don't know. It might.
As soon as EA bought Westwood, no chance.
Yeah, no. I mean, I do think
very
the
negative, aren't I? Say sorry.
No, it's realistic. I think the appetite's there though. So
yeah, I do. I want it.
Whoever's,
man.
Everyone listening, if you like RTS, listen. Tag in the studios. Let them know. Let them know you want something different.
Send them this podcast.
Send it to them. So. That brings me to asking the question: are there any kind of titles modern day that give us the same level of experience? I mean, and this is really sad because I sat there a couple of nights ago and the answer was no. It just was no. I mean, I go back to the Battle for Middle Earth purely because of the control system. I go back to Command and Conquers. I go back to the Warcrafts. I go back to all that type of stuff. I mean, there's the likes of things like Rampart on the Master System.
Don't get me started on Rampart.
Cracking little game. But I mean, is there anything? And we're going to struggle. I think. I mean, there are things. I mean, I played give a shout out to Jurassic World Evolution. Anyone played that? You basically manage your own dinosaur park, which is
but that's the
10-year-old
sim,
me.
isn't it?
But it's a sim. It's not an RTS.
It's technically impressive, very dull because I've got it. I bought that outright, not even on Game Pass.
Whoa!
I bought that.
I'll go for free on gold.
I had the best Christmas day in 2020. I couldn't go to Jen's for some reason, and obviously my kid was with his mum, and I spent all day eating chicken wings and macaroni cheese and playing Jurassic World Evolution, which is it's nice at first, and it kind of has those feels, but it's once you get into it, it is dull.
I think it has a certain amount of hours.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. I mean, my kids would sit and watch it, and they'll shout all the dinosaurs, and they love it. So for me, that's kind of a bit.
It's a bit sad when one of your dinosaurs gets ill and something. It's a bit,
a
bit like.
Although I like flying a helicopter around and darting the T-Rex and stuff like that for no reason whatsoever. But I know what you mean. There's limited kind of time on it. But there we go. I mean, it's a sad situation. Is there? Do we have anything like the games, those classic games of old? No, we don't.
You say no, but recently I treated myself to something on Steam called Dune Spice Wars. And I was like, I like Dune. I saw it was coming out. I thought I'll give it a go. But I'm not that intelligent because this game is a thinking man's RTS. I don't know if you've heard of it.
That's dangerous.
And it's more political in negotiating and doing. I was like, I just want to blow stuff up. So I played it for a couple hours and I didn't know what I was really doing. I haven't really given it a really good go yet. So I'm not trying to have a go at the game per se. But I just think you have to sort of negotiate, trade, do this. I'm like, it's probably quite accurate to what Dune was really about. But it wasn't quite. It didn't scratch my itch. So sorry. And people shout at me, going, "You've got to give it a bit more time. You're not smart enough," and that's fine. I can take it. But yeah, so there you go. Dune Spice Wars. But again, if it's good, let me know, please.
I mean, there's so many we could talk about. To be fair, but we come to the most important question: when exactly do we place the golden era of RTS games? So, look, go on.
Well, I stole your pod and I stole your question.
Thank you.
And I put it on Reddit, didn't I? There's a real-time strategy Reddit group. It's quite popular, and it's got 123 upvotes.
Woo!
with 109 comments.
Woo!
Wow.
So
I don't know if that's good or not. I don't know.
But listen, it's good.
good.
Let's just say it's good.
Okay.
the biggest comment, which has got 45 upvotes, says it lost its throne once MOBAs became a thing. What's MOBAs? MOBA.
It's a type of game, but I can't remember what type of
Will you
game.
Google it? Because we sound stupid now, Keith. MOBA.
I'll do it.
Anyway, yeah, go on. And they go on to say...
Oh, yeah, someone said MOBA, question mark. Here we go. It's a multiplayer online battle arena. There you go.
Multiplayer online battle arena video
Yeah,
games.
so thank you, the person that asked that question. Again, I don't want to read all this out, but this person's got 40 upvotes, so you're happy to
I
chip
don't know
in?
any of these games that are apparently MOBAs. Any of them.
There's those blurred lines again.
IGN Com1 said, it's hard to say looking at Wikipedia's list of RTS games. I think some might say that the Golden Age engine 2013, as titles like Starcraft 2, never truly eclipsed what came before. But since 2016 or 2017, we have entered a less glorious but significant silver age of RTS. Age of Empires expansions are more popular than ever, with remasters.
Silver Age.
The Silver Age.
You can't have that. Sorry.
The Bronze Age.
Bronze Age. Wood Age.
Yeah. He's mentioned a few games recently. Starship Troopers, apparently. That'd be pretty cool. Terran Command, Iron Harvest, and Five Nations.
All right.
So we're not talking about the Silver Age. Come on, get talking about the Golden Age.
That's on the next one.
Yeah. Man, so many comments, and I can't read them all out. It's madness.
I think literally that everybody's got something to say on this, and I mean, let the convo, continue. But I mean, I'm going to give my verdict in a minute. But I mean, it is a great debate, and the gaming community as a whole. The good thing about it is that we can have those kind of discussions, and the thing is, everyone can have their own type of opinion without being ridiculed, which I like. Mm-hmm. I like that. Well,
yeah.
So if I had to press you, specifically Adrian, okay, because the other guys are kind of just here as spectators.
Yes.
If I had to press you for a kind of really accurate, specific golden era of RTS, what would you say based on kind of what we've just been through and your own experience?
I think the genre really found its feet properly when Command & Conquer was released.
Okay.
And then I'm going to say it ended with Warcraft 3. Warcraft 3 for me was the end. Warcraft 3 was a really good game, but it was just tipping over. What sort of years are we talking? So you're talking 1994 to... When was Warcraft 3 coming out? I don't know. That's a good question.
Warcraft 3 would have been, 2000? Something like that, just before?
Yeah. I mean, maybe...
Okay. Maybe a little bit
before
before
our Google expert.
I didn't have that one down.
So...
I suppose I better give a verdict.
But it's quite a long stretch, and I love that genre. Red Alert for me was the best. That's the best game.
I don't think there'll be many people arguing that fact. I mean, I sat and thought for a long time about this, and I've actually got. I believe that the golden era of RTS games was pretty short. Actually, pretty fleeting, and I think that
Warcraft 3 was 2002.
Oh, 2002. So I wasn't far off, but I've got it down as only 3 years. I'm saying 94 to 97.
Eesh.
Now, and there's a specific reason for that, which I'll come on to. But this is mainly because of the release of Warcraft, Orcs and Humans. Yeah, I think it was such a massive deal. Yeah, huge game that everyone got into. But also with the arrival of Command and Conquer, Age of Empires, Total Annihilation, etc. Within that time frame. So those titles took all of the elements of the genre and they allowed the player to control each and every one of them. Yeah, it wasn't just parts of the genre; it was everything, all in one game. Yeah, which was building, researching, driving, fighting, capturing, resource gathering, etc. We could go on. So, I mean, I had thought of extending it to an earlier period, but for me, although there were some like extremely prominent titles. They'd not quite ignited the fire that I would say that would blow the market wide open. And really the main reason is because of the rivalry between studios, which was clear. They were making the best possible games because they had to. Yeah. They didn't want to be seen to be second best. And that broke more ground naturally, and put more and more cutting edge and playable games, out on those franchises. Yeah, so 94 to 97 for me.
There you go, free.
That doesn't mean I'm discounting the games, outside of that.
Are you telling me you hate Warzone 21?
Oh, Warzone 21, here we go. Well, you telling me that Diddy Kong Racing is not better than Mario Kart? Here we go. So we had a Twitter poll actually, just as we come to a close here. We had a Twitter poll some weeks ago, just to test the water on a few titles, and the results partly surprised me, but that's because I'm slightly biased towards one of the titles. I asked which ones out of Command and Conquer, Warcraft, and Total Annihilation our followers would prefer. It was a resounding win for Command and Conquer. Actually, I'm surprised. I thought there would have been more love for Warcraft, given the following of World of Warcraft, for example. And the same with Total Annihilation, being so groundbreaking. But there we are. People just love Command and Conquer, and all hail CNC. So, and why not? Great game. So, I mean, I'd love for this conversation to continue. There's so much more to say, but obviously we've got to close things down. Otherwise, we'll be here all day. And Dylan's like looking at me as if to say, come on, get your arse in gear. So, when you lovely people out there listen to this pod, do give us your input, tag us in your opinions, and like I said, any favourites of the genre, or if you've got any that we've not mentioned, any hidden gems, anything that, even indie ones, or anything at all that you want to shout out, tag us in them, tag the people that are involved in them, and if you just want to have a general moan at studios that they haven't released enough, then tag them in as well, we can have another great chat about it online. But for me, chaps, that just about wraps things up for this episode. Thank you all for contributing. Adrian, thanks for all your stories. Fantastic.
My pleasure.
And there we are. That's my take on the golden era of real-time strategy games. See you again.
Thanks for listening to today's podcast. We really hope you enjoyed it. You can tweet us at Arcade Attack UK. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/Arcade Attack UK. Check out our website at arcadeattack.co.uk for lots more retro gaming goodness and to delve into our archives. Our podcasts are also available on Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Please leave us a review and a rating, we'd really appreciate it. If you'd like to support Arcade Attack, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/arcadeattack, which will give you access to exclusive podcasts, interviews and other bonus content. So, until next time, take care and we'll speak to you soon.